Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We've got a few people in participants here, so we'll give another like 30 seconds or so for other people to join. And we are recording it, so we can send this to anybody afterwards as well. Let me pull this back up. I always feel like we have to have hold music or something here, Amber. You got any good jokes?
I have a really good IT joke. You want to hear it?
I do. I'm always down for an IT joke.
Okay, uh there's four engineers in a car and they're driving out in the middle of the country and the car breaks down and the mechanical engineer is like, I know what to do, and he gets out and he does something mechanical to the car and it doesn't work. And then sorry, there's three engineers. The electrical engineer says, I know what to do, and he gets out and he does something electrical to the car, it doesn't work. And so then the IT engineer says, everybody get out of the car and get back in the car.
That's funny. Classic.
Yeah.
That's my IT. That's my IT support myself. I just get out, turn it off, put it back in.
Yep. Turn it off.
Um,
And
cool. Well, I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna take everybody through this. And then Amber, just feel free to jump in wherever you feel appropriate here. All right. So, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about the ultimate guide to artificial intelligence. You may have heard something about that within our industry. I feel like it's the buzziest of buzzword, but we try to give this document out exclusively for our clients just to make sure that you guys are understanding kind of what's coming and what's taking place. The last thing I want to do is basically read all of this to you guys. So we'll kind of be taking it a little bit page by page. We'll be spending a little bit more time on other pages, but we can make this happen. And of course, if you have any questions throughout this, feel free to put them in the chat. I see people already laughing at your IT jokes in the chat, Amber, so we can make this happen. But
can I
if you
can I
don't,
say um
yeah.
I thought it was still needed. Sorry. I just want to say that we have published a generic version of this guide, but we published another version just for our clients because it's tied to our roadmap process and it's a lot more detailed and specific. So as clients, you guys get an exclusive access to this version.
Yep. Yeah, it's good to call out. There's one on our website that is not the client one. You should have got an email and your CSM should have sent this out to you. So if you don't got it, feel free to shoot us a note. We can make sure you have access to it. So, um, don't necessarily need to spend too much time on the introduction here. I think we all know the impact AI can have on transforming our industry, and it's really just not a vision for tomorrow. It's happening now. And I would not believe anything that this person says at the bottom here, even if they're quoted throughout. So just to acknowledge that. Um, so table of contents, naturally, if you do click on any of these, we'll bring you right to that section, just so you know that as you're going through this as a quick stop and grab for you. So what is artificial intelligence? It's really just a broad category of technologies that allow computers to perform tasks, typically require human intelligence. You know, there's different buckets underneath artificial intelligence. I think last time I checked, there was like 11 total. Some of the four that we'll be focusing on is machine learning, which is where systems that are learning from experience, natural language processing, tools that understand and respond to human language, computer vision, technology that interprets images or video. Whenever you do the face scan on your iPhone or Android, that is technically computer vision. And then generative AI, which is, tools that are helping to create new content like ChatGPT. That is something I live out of. So if anybody ever wants to just kind of do a debrief outside of this of kind of how I'm using some of these AI tools, always happy to be a resource to our clients here. So moving on here, four types is what we're really seeing. So there's the reactive AI. These are the AIs that can react to what's happening right now. They don't remember really anything from the past. You know, an automatic fall detector sends an alert if someone falls, but it doesn't remember the past falls. There's limited memory, which remembers a little bit to make better decisions. Smart medication dispenser that knows if you've already taken your pills today and reminds you if you forgot. And then theory of mind, which is still being worked on, is really understanding emotions and thoughts. An AI companion that knows the resident seems lonely and suggests a call with a family or a fun group activity. And then the self-aware AI. So hopefully the Terminator does not come to be, but can think and feel like a human An example would be, imagine a robot caregiver that understands it's part of a care team, makes decisions about how to best support a resident's happiness. A lot of it falls in today. A lot of AI falls in this limited memory category, but some of the things are still theoretical. And then some are just still kind of working through of how we see that taking place today. Um, we try to curate just a bunch of AI resources for you here. All of these links should work. The only thing that's really affiliated with us is the Raising Tech podcast. You'll have to tell me outside of this who's the better host between Amber and myself. I might be a little bit biased, but we all know who it is. But yeah, so there's other episodes, other resources out there about AI, ChatGPT, how people are using it. So the Bridge the Gap podcast, there's an episode about it. Age Tech podcast, episode about there. Future of AI and Senior Living and Care report from 2024. 7 industry experts reveal top opportunities and risk. Role of AI enhancing retirement living and healthcare, revolutionizing resident care and experience through AI technologies, adopting AI in senior living, a fear-free approach, and AI could open doors to advances in care, operations, senior living. So you can go definitely check all those out. We've got all the links in here. But you know, I imagine read through all of that and you'll know more than the majority of people about AI in this industry. So yes. All right. Do you want to talk about this part, Amber? Do you want me to dive deeper into it? I forgot where I was making the handoff to you.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Do you want me to, or?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to dive into the specific 5 pillars of AI that we've developed for senior living, that we've been spending a lot of time talking about. But I think that it all has to tie back to the entire business model that we have rolled out with you guys as clients, where we have our strategic plan, we have our roadmap, we want to balance things like AI and innovation against other priorities. So this is where using the roadmap, using the strategic plan, using the tech pyramid, where we look at the balance of infrastructure versus business systems versus tech culture versus innovation, and kind of make sure all of those things align together. I did a podcast. It hasn't been released yet, but we did a podcast with Steve from Omnidata, who's doing a lot of private AI. And we talked about how AI has really been a gift to IT in some ways, because, not at Parasol, but some of the other organizations we talked to with other internal IT, it's like IT has been trying to get funding for a lot of the things they want to do for years and years. And then the CEO comes in and says, I want AI, make it happen. And here's some money to do that. And it's like, it's great to like be able to go out and start looking into this innovative stuff. But I was on a call with someone who's not a client of ours that we did a strategic plan for. And, they're saying, well, but our phone system doesn't even work. And so she was like, in that case, she was not happy that they were trying to spend money on AI, when she's like, I just need my sales and marketing people's phones to work, which they didn't at that site. So I think it's a balance to get excited about what the opportunities are and what are the potential automation savings and data we can have, but then against balanced with the other tech priorities as well.
It's a good call. I think we got another Amber Barden in the meeting here. Hey Jake, how are you?
What? Oh.
Hello. So do you want to talk through this, Amber? You want me to go for it?
Yeah, I think, there are so many things with AI, and I think it's, we can talk about AI, but we can really talk about any type of innovation. I think robotics and falls, those are another 2 big ones where we're seeing a lot of new companies come out, a lot of new options around those. And we're actually planning to put together like the same type of paper and information for robotics and falls as well. Just FYI, we didn't include those with AI because we think they're separate things, but I think it's important to establish governance around that, and making sure that we understand, why are we getting AI, what's the purpose of it, what's the business problem it's solving, and how are we being strategic about that. And so we have recommendations in here about policies, at the government oversight. We've had some people ask us about survey. Can survey access our private AI tools, and how does that play out? And then also potentially creating an IT steering committee, or I'm sorry, an AI steering committee that could be a sub part of your IT steering committee, or it could be something separate. So again, just like anything else that's new and innovative and a little bit unknown, we want to have a strategic approach to it with governance. So this is a little bit about, because the governance question is a big one that we get, so this is a little bit more detailed about what we've heard. So I did a a webinar on this for Missouri Leading Age, and we had one of our clients in Wisconsin joined, and she's actually an attorney. So I had asked her, and she did some research because that's where the question came up about, is this discoverable? So we were talking about building private AI databases, and it's a little unclear right now. I don't think the regulation is caught up with it. But it's like, what's the term in here? And you guys on the call probably know, but if it's a system of record or something like that, that they're allowed to ask for information as part of a survey. And so that's a little bit unclear right now. And then the laws could also vary by state, but there hasn't been precedence yet from what we're hearing. We also talked to Ryan Galea, the CEO of Icon, who is also an attorney, and he just kind of said basically it's not super clear right now, so there's still a lot of unknowns here.
Yeah, from my experience, kind of still like the wild, wild west right out there. I do think there's going to be more litigation that's popping up that's going to kind of create what this will look like. But even just Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was quoted the other day saying like, theoretically, your chat logs could be included in any court case and stuff. So obviously, there's going to be more and more litigation coming out around this, and more precedents being set of what this would look like.
And we have in the 5 pillars, we have more specific governance and policy recommendations underneath each section.
Yeah.
So this is about the AI committee, steering committee. So it's totally optional, but we thought it might be a good idea for people who are really further down the road and wanting to start rolling out AI. So it's something we're happy to help you guys with. I think we've got later in the document some sample agendas, who should be on the committee, things like that. So, we're happy to help set that up with you, or if you need something like to do internally, there's some guidelines in here around that.
Yeah.
Just, more information on the committee. If anybody has questions, feel free to jump in while we're going over this. Is there? Okay.
Yep. I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this is where we're really going to dive into the 5 pillars that we've developed specifically for senior living. And so out of these 5 pillars, I would say the first 3 are more around, they're quick wins, and they're more around productivity and automation. And then I would say the last 2 are the much more in-depth, much more time-consuming, much more costly things that are going to be specific to your organization and its data. That I would say are more long-term goals, but have some of the most exciting implications around AI. So we'll talk a little bit more about these in detail. So first one, super easy, meeting note takers is probably the easiest thing to implement. I think we have somebody join their Firefly to this call here. So, obviously people are doing, I've been on some meetings where it's like there's more note takers on this meeting than people. So super easy, but there are some things to think about. So we have some words of caution in here. One of those is HIPAA compliance. So people don't realize that, if you are going to, you may have like an internal policy that we are not allowed to talk about PHI or HIPAA related things on a meeting, but you might be recording it and not even realize that like you're waiting for people to join and you're chit-chatting about something and you talk about a resident, that could be a scenario that happens. So as far as, HIPAA compliance, we'd recommend that you're using one of the platforms we have listed in here. They're on the bottom left there, that are HIPAA compliant. And then we have some listed that are not HIPAA compliant and will not sign BAAs. So it's Otter, Firefly, Fathom, the Zoom Basic without the BAA. And of course, you could use those tools if you, can be reasonably sure that you're not going to have any, HIPAA concerns or anything like that. But, just things to think about is, do you already have a tool? Is it deployed organizationally overall? Who manages it? Who's responsible for, keeping track of the notes? It does like I was saying earlier, if you're waiting for people to join, it records everything. Some of these automatically send the notes out to everybody. And I definitely have had it happen to me where I've forgotten it was recording. And you're like, oh, I don't really want that to be sent out to everybody because you're chit-chatting before a call. So just something to think about, but this can be great for productivity. And you can use it for in-person meetings as well. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add, to the point of like recording, like I definitely get on calls with people and they're meeting recorders there and they're not even there. And I even tried this the other day and I said, send Matt $5 via Venmo. And it came up as a to-do for that person. Granted, they never sent it, but yeah, and I think too, like it's what you do with these afterwards is kind of like really helpful. So we had mentioned here about transcribing and summarizing. If you need to keep meeting notes, it's definitely very helpful there. I'll say from my perspective, it's been very helpful to kind of just go back and see how someone said a specific thing, or, working through some of my own projects. And then it's been very helpful to, especially in some of my internal meetings, to ask like, what questions am I not asking as a leader? Where could I be a better leader? Where can I, ask better questions? In this like constant pursuit of just becoming, a better individual myself. So I do think meeting note takers can help save some of that time. And then I know, how do we do it in person versus virtual, which, we are recording this one here for everybody as well. But, I think it all depends on what you do with that recording is kind of the key step here as you're thinking about meeting note takers.
Okay, next one, LLM tools, otherwise known as ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is an LLM tool. There's others out there, so we made it a little bit more generic. So I'm assuming everybody on this meeting has probably used ChatGPT. I have to confess, I'm a late adopter. I was starting to do AI presentations in March and have been doing multiple conferences and webinars, and I was not using any tools myself. And then I got into a little bit. So, these can be really powerful. A couple of things to consider as far as words of caution. This is all public data. So again, we have an acceptable use policy sample on here. You don't want to put anything in there that you don't want the internet to know. So for example, we have a Parasol GPT and we have an Amber GPT, and we have, I think Matt has his own GPT and things like that. But we take everything that's public. So I do a lot of podcasts, webinars. We'll take those transcripts because they're publicly available, and we'll put them in Amber GPT, and it starts to learn, how I talk, my tone of voice, the types of things I talk about, and it can then generate content, which is pretty cool. I had it write RFP for me, not for a client, for something for Parasol. And it like knew all about Parasol and when we were started and our values, and it pulled all that into the RFP. It wrote it in 30 seconds, which would have taken me an hour to write. So just be aware that it is public data. You don't want to put, obviously, no PHI or HIPAA or confidential information. But it can be really cool to draft policies, generate content. If you're going to be generating content, and Matt can probably speak more about this, publicly, there's some tells to look for that people will know it's AI to remove. So I'll let Matt speak about that. And then there are other tools besides ChatGPT. So we have some listed at the bottom and just our recommendations around those. So Matt, do you want to, I know you're a much heavier user than I am.
Yeah, it's I've been using it for a couple of years pretty consistently, and I'm glad to hear we're giving away all the secrets about Amber GPT and Parasol GPT here. So yeah, so and what we do for Parasol, so you guys could definitely steal this for your own marketing team. So what we did was took all the external facing copy, so everything on our website, anything in press releases, put it in kind of the knowledge base behind. So if we ever need our brand voice or anything we need to pump out, we can do that specific to Parasol. And then with Amber GPT, basically trying to make a cooler version of Amber. And I
Too
don't know, that
cheerful
might be,
sometimes.
yeah. And so even this meeting, I'm going to take the transcript of what she said and put it into the knowledge base to continue to build up on that voice. And those are just, we use a $20 a month version of ChatGPT to be able to do that. And then there is a lot of opportunity for what that could look like in the background. And in terms of using ChatGPT, I look at this as it's basically it's a conversation. I think a lot of people struggle with it is to just put in one prompt and it doesn't give them back what they need. Even in preparation for this, I uploaded this and be like, can you give me some talking points to make sure that I'm hitting everything? It came back with only 8 pages. I was like, there's 45 pages. So, please come back. But I will say there's probably more people using ChatGPT in your organizations than you even realize. So that's will be important when we get to some of the policy stuff. But there's other models out there. I just prefer ChatGPT just because it's the one I've been using the longest. But it is a huge, huge opportunity to become, when I think of AI, I think of two buckets, like the AI augmented self. So how do you become the best version of yourself, the most efficient? And then this kind of AI team, which we'll talk about some of the other one, but using LLM tools, it's just a huge game changer. And being AI curious and using these tools will just continue to help elevate you as a leader, your organization, and all that sort of stuff.
And when we get to the fourth pillar, we're going to talk about how you can create LLM tools that are private to you and specific to your data. But right now we're talking about the public facing ones.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? I did see a chat, Jennifer. I saw you had a question. Did answer it. If there's anything else, feel free to put it in the chat or any feedback. Okay, the third pillar is AI that's in the systems you guys already have. So this could be Point Click Care, could be Yardi, could be Relias, your financial systems, HR systems, whatever you have. It's guaranteed that these vendors are all using AI in some capacity. They may or may not be telling you what's in their systems. And sometimes you have to upgrade or you have to get a different version. I know some of the resident engagement apps, you do have to sometimes pay for a different version or it's not on the current version. You have to upgrade to get access to some of those, like for Icon or Cubigo. But this is a great chance to work with our team, with our business analyst team, and we can work with the vendors on your behalf to find out what they have rolled out or what they're planning to roll out, and if there's anything you need to do differently to take advantage of some of these tools.
Yeah, and I would say too, just a word of caution. Using AI in a lot of these technology vendors marketing has become like the default where everybody's promoting that they use AI in some level. There's definitely people that are doing it better than others. And if you ever need help like kind of navigating like what that would look like specific, I've been the tech vendor. I kind of know smoke that's been blown in the past. So happy to be a resource and making sure that, when they're saying they're using AI, it's actually an AI that they're creating and not just doing like a sync to OpenAI or something like that. I mean, there's
And
definitely
automation is not AI. And you also have to be careful too, because you don't want to just go to whoever's shouting the loudest that they have AI, because it's not always necessary or needed. And sometimes you need to just make sure that those basic features are there. But I know, like Jennifer, you're on the call. We just did a document management system with your community, and we actually included that in the requirements analysis. We asked how AI was going to be used in the document management systems. And then we asked more specific questions about, is it just automating things, or is it actually learning and improving the system? So, as you start to look out to roll out new systems, it's a good thing to ask. And then also just like a word of caution, if you like, I'll give you an example that happened at Parasol. Our finance company mentioned on a call that they were planning to take our information and put it into ChatGPT to help better support us. And I said, please don't do that because that's public. And, it's like, make sure the vendors aren't using AI in your data without your consent or knowledge. And do you have something in your contract, protecting you from that? So other things to think about as well. Yeah. Any comments, questions, or some more specific? And you guys all have a copy of this, so.
Yeah, these are just some other examples of built-in AI systems that we're seeing out there in the industry. And, I think from a technology vendor, they would be silly to not invest in some level of AI just based on what it can potentially do. So we're going to continue to see this more and more front and center. A case could be made. AI has been around for a lot longer than I think in the recent boom in the last few years. But, from what I'm seeing, more and more people are investing in it, prioritizing it, and making it part of the service offering. And then they're trying to charge a premium for some of that AI capabilities, if not just including it in the standard plan today.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. So the last two, this is what I mentioned at the beginning, that you can really be a major game changer with data and your organizational data specifically. So the last two are private AI analytics and data querying combined with robot process automation, which is the fifth one. So to me, these things go hand in hand. So we're going to talk about the private data first. So I am working with a consulting client right now. It's the first project that I have done where we are doing an enterprise data strategy. So this organization has 9 communities. They're in process of doing major changes to all their systems. They just switched from Matrix to PCC. They're just changed their accounting system to something else. They're about to change their HR system. And they're starting to look at, as we move these changes, what can we actually do with our data and how can we create an enterprise data strategy? So the vendors in senior living, as you guys all know, do not like to talk to each other. So, PCC is the best with their open API, but they do charge a lot of money for it. And it's like all the vendors in the space just want to own their one little piece of their process and their system. And so, you know, this industry has been data poor for years and years and years. You guys know this. It's been really difficult for us to get data out of our systems. And it's especially difficult to get enterprise data so that you can take, you know, your HR data compared to your financial data, compared to your clinical data, and have it all in one place. So there are now multiple vendors, and we've had quite a few of them on our podcast that are delivering senior living specific static dashboards. So Comms and Seniorlytics and CareWorks and Profix, those are just the ones we've had on our podcast. I'm sure there's others out there. What they're doing is they're delivering, I would not call that AI. Those are more like static dashboards, KPIs, where they are, you know, talking to your systems, they're pulling it out and they're displaying information in one place. Now, some of those vendors are starting to build AI into their systems, which I think is great because that's the direction they need to go. But that's not what this is. So what we're talking about here is to be able to take your data, do something similar where we're pulling all the data into a private data warehouse where you can do dashboards and you can do KPIs, but in addition, you can add on predictive analytics querying through AI. So outside of being able to have your dashboards and things like that, which you absolutely need and you can have through these private AI tools, you can start to talk to it the way you guys talk to your phone or ChatGPT or, you know, Siri or, you know, Gemini or whatever you have, where you can start to ask it questions and it can search your data and give you generative answers. It can start to do predictions for you. It can start to do trends. You know, one of the clients I'm working with, the one I just mentioned, one of their analytics that they want is, you know, how can we start to analyze what's the formula we need for X number of positions per campus based on the census and staffing levels and other things. And then how does that compare to what we're hiring for and how does that match up? So position control. You know, how do we look at our payer mix? So is it better to have, you know, X number of Medicare beds versus Medicaid beds versus private pay? What's the most profitable to us with these different combinations? So that goes beyond like just static dashboards and information to actually start using your data and information to give you, you know, something you can use to do trends, to look over time, to compare things to, even just to do search of your data that you may not think of in a dashboard, but it's like something that comes up that you want to ask it a question about and it can search it. So this is where it starts to get really powerful. And this is going to be the most time consuming and the most expensive part of AI. So the other thing is if you have these private AI tools, you can build your own custom LLM tools. So I mentioned that, you know, we're talking about ChatGPT, those are public. We can put your LLM tool. So like, let's just say your HR team wants to write job descriptions. It can search your HR database. It can, you know, generate things that are more specific to you that are private, that are not searchable by the rest of the internet. So the first thing to do with this is to get your systems in place. So if you're thinking about changing your major systems, do that first. Don't do this if you're about to change your financial system or any of that. Secondly is you need to optimize those systems. So, you know, the client I just mentioned I'm working with, they just went through all these major system changes. They have a lot of data cleanup. They still have a lot of things in spreadsheets, you know, as I'm talking to different departments, trying to find out where their data is. Things are in random shared drives, you know, owned by somebody that aren't easily searchable. So we need to get our data in a good place where we can pull it out, because I have seen several communities try to go down this road with skipping that step, and years later and millions of dollars, so they're still struggling with source of truth issues. So they're getting all this data into one place, but no one knows what's accurate, because you look at here, it's one answer, you look at the census over here, it's something else. And so for this to be worthwhile, you really have to get your data straightened out first. And then pull it into a data warehouse so that it's standardizing everything, so that whatever you're using for resident name is the same, you know, parameters for every single system that's pulling in, so that we can match the data and make sure the data in the data warehouse is accurate. And then on top of that, we can start to build these dashboards. I'd start with dashboards first, and then your AI tools. So, I mean, to me, this is kind of the most exciting, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, I would just add AI is powered through your data. And if you don't have good data going in, you're just gonna get crap on the back end. And so making sure that you're prioritizing that, we're starting to see these like data centers and data lakes. We kind of act as the source of truth where some of these platforms will kind of pull from. But I do think like that's the biggest opportunity of like what you could be doing today is just making sure that your data is accurate.
And then what I was saying is that combining that with RPA is where we can really start to get some powerful stuff. So I mean, Matt and I just both talked about how getting your data in is super important. But how do we automate that? How do we capture everything that's truly happening in a shift, not just what they decide they want to put in the system when they have time? So, like automating the ability to get data into our systems is really what's going to allow us to leverage that good data. So RPA is just automation of that. So it's bots that can take a process and automate it. It can search a PDF, like let's say it's an emissions PDF, it can search the PDF, it can data enter it for you. It's like that, being able to take that automation and start to get our data in a more streamlined, efficient, and accurate way is what's going to lead to that better data coming out. Now, I will say, I think RPA is really, really new. I know there's some companies out there that people have heard of that they talk about, and I'm not going to name any names, but I have not seen that company give me anything that they can point to that's been successful, because I've asked them and they can't give me a single client they've been successful with. And then if you start asking them some hard questions, they really can't answer them. So I do think this is a pretty new field, and I think it's the least developed. And there's a long way to go before this will actually start to be useful and helpful. And I would just say really vet your vendors before you dive into something with RPA. I was told about a vendor I hadn't heard about that I haven't yet vetted that has done this successfully in healthcare. I don't think it's senior living yet, but more on the hospital side. So that's a potential vendor to look at. But if you want more information, you can certainly work with us and we'll help you work through that.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of opportunity here. To Amber's point, I do think there's going to be more and more vendors trying to breaking into senior living. They see the B2B play as an easy business opportunity, and hyper focusing on, who can shout the loudest of their AI is, the ones that will think that's a winning strategy, but it's definitely not. And just a good, I always like to use like ways I'm using it. So like RPA, a way that I use it. So I have a podcast outside of Raising Tech, and basically what I do is I export the transcript that acts as my data source. I upload it into a specific AI agent or RPA that I use, and say, follow the steps from that transcript. It gets me title options, the show notes, LinkedIn post. So it pretty much does everything I need to do each week. And what used to take a half hour, 45 minutes, I'm now down to like a minute or two, right? So it's always embracing this philosophy of automating the mundane to elevate the meaningful. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, so these are just some more specific readiness questions to ask around each of the pillars. So I don't think you guys will get a copy. This is something we can help you work through.
Yeah.
You start to think about being able to roll any of these systems out. This is just, really just, again, an overview of everything we've been talking about as far as the process we'd recommend for it to be successful. It's the same.
Yeah.
This is the same stuff, just more detail. And then these are, I think the rest of the document is just a lot of the samples of what we talked about. So sample committees, agenda, sample policies, stuff like that. So I think that's really what most of the rest of the document is.
Yeah, and I would suggest too, if you don't have an AI policy in place, take this, copy paste it, create it for yours, put it in ChatGPT to customize it to your organization. I do think having some level of policy that you can hold people accountable to is key. What we see happening is a lot of what I like to call shadow AI, is people using AI behind the scenes. People are afraid that they are, don't want to share that they're using it. But I think it's happening more than we like to admit. And so just making sure you've got some policies in place that you can hold people accountable to and setting that expectation. I do think it's mandatory as we continue to move through this new world. And then yeah, just some other additional policies that, again, copy paste, steal it, borrow it, be inspired by it, all that fun stuff.
But I guess that's really what we had to present to you guys today. We'd like to open up to any questions, feedback, thoughts, even if you have feedback for us in the document, if this is helpful. People allowed to talk, or do they have to put it in the chat?
That is a good question. Who said this? I
right?
think this is Amber G. I think this is Amber GPT.
Maybe. Does anybody on the CSM team have anything to add?
Glad to see that the clients were able to attend, and hopefully this was impactful. But if you don't have questions right now too, I know it'll take some time to sort of like ingest it and, you know, review the guide with others if you need to, and then feel free to come back to us.
Looks like we do have an open question. How do we get a BAA for Microsoft licenses? Jake, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, good question. I think that we have to reach out directly or through the CSP. I actually haven't gone through that process myself personally.
But we can help you figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think, with a lot of these questions, anybody that tells you they're an AI expert isn't necessarily telling the truth. I think it's very funny when I talk at some of these conferences and people call me an AI expert, and just have to remind people, like, I'm just figuring this out as we move along here, right? There's going to be more and more questions that pop out, but making sure you're attacking it with a level of intentionality and thoughtfulness will ultimately, use this tool the right way and making sure you're doing it.
Yeah, I would just add that everybody thinks that everybody else is more advanced in AI than they are, and they're not. No one's really doing this yet in senior living. It's still very new. I've only run into 2 clients that have started down the data path at all. So, I don't feel like you're behind in any way. And the other thing is just that AI is not always right. So, but neither are people. So, ChatGPT isn't always going to give you accurate information. I know that one of the present panels I was on, they were talking about how there's hesitation in the hospital world to use some of the AI, but they're like, but doctors are also wrong. So just like with any tech, use it as like a tool, but not as like the ultimate answer to everything.
Yeah, there's a real thing called AI hallucinations, which basically gives you fake information. There's a court case I always like to share. It was 2 lawyers, I think in the state of New York, where they were basically running through ChatGPT and they cited like 6 cases that were just completely false in their own arguments and got called out and were each fined $5,000. Real money, probably just kind of a slap on the wrist, but I think, having that human element, I think using AI will get you 80-90% of the way there, but you still need that human element on the back end to make sure that you are putting out there in the world what you want to put out there in the world. And then in terms of AI writing, I know I didn't answer that question, Amber, but like the dashes, the weird emojis, there's some key words. There's prompts you can put in to remove those M dashes. I just turn mine into commas if I want to keep that sentence. So I don't even know where to use an M dash. That's why I have Grammarly Professional for the last 10 years of my life.
Okay. Well, please reach out to your CSM if you guys want to have any additional conversations or have questions so we can help you navigate this.
Should I just end it?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.